Alright, so if you've been following along, we've kind of been going over the flow of how it's going to target things. And picked up a few little mistakes that I made here and there from being tired when I made this. And yeah, so this video we're going to talk about line of sight and range checking to see if the target's still valid. So yeah, I got a little joke up here about using the timeline. Yeah, you could use event tick, timeline, delay. You could put a delay right here so this event tick isn't trying to do this 120 times a second if you've got 120 FPS. So goes into the sequence. First thing it's going to do is it's going to do a check a line of sight. This conditional branch here is more or less for future implementation stuff. It's going to check any of these variables, and if any of them are true, yeah, because this is an OR. If any of these are true, then it's going to go ahead and execute this branch, but technically you don't even need it because this would hold that off anyways. You can't have a camera hard target without having a target lock, but in case some kind of other process in the engine changes this variable, for instance, like made us untarget something and target some kind of point of interest in a boss event or something, this would keep it from breaking this. And you can bring off some functionality off of these too if you need it. So I got a delay timer. It's just a half-second timer. I'm not really too worried about this being a super high frequency update rate. So when I had said earlier with the event graph here how you could put a timer, well, technically I did, and I just happen to have event tick here. I mean, you could make a function or something like that for it so that you don't have to like drag the actual event tick thing here, but it serves the same purpose. And so it's going to come in, it's going to do a branch. This branch is going to take our current target, index value 0. Remember, like I've said before, arrays are n-1. So if your first entry in an array is number 0, index 0. So it's going to take the player character or the player location and that actor location. It's going to subtract the two spots in the world. And it's going to determine the vector length between those two, and then it's going to compare that to a distance. And in this case, like I said before, this is a targeting range essentially. 600 units here. Well, let's say you're sitting right at 575 units, and you target something, and then you take 3 steps back. And sorry, I had to burp there for a second and pause video. Take 3 steps back. Well, now suddenly you're going to detarget untarget because you broke a certain threshold. So I added in a multiplier of 1.5. So that basically you could change it to whatever, but essentially you have to be 900 units in order to break this conditional. So so checks, is this length greater than that length? And if it is, then it's going to come out of here and say, oop, you're out of range, and it's going to go through and it's going to trigger you to untarget. And then if it's false, it's going to come up here and it's going to do a line trace for objects. And the object types, it's just going to check all these various types. I should technically take pawn out of here. I don't need it. Well, no, I need it because it's got to hit that actor. I'll have to add in some kind of conditional to not count all pawns, or maybe block out by class or something. It's a simple line trace. It shoots from the actor to the target actor. So nothing fancy. Just a simple function. So then it takes that actor that it hit, whether it be the wall or anything, and it compares it to our target, and it says, hey, are you two equal to each other? If you are, then it means that we've got line of sight. If you aren't, then we need to go into this loop here. And all this loop is a fancy counting system, kind of timer, I guess you could say. We divide one variable by another, in this case 3 by 0.5, so that gives us 6 seconds. It truncates the value, and I should probably use round, because sometimes integers will round really weird. They'll be like a 3 will be a 3 2.9999999. They get weird sometimes, so it'd probably be better to round than truncate. So because that can mean the difference between 5 and 6 in this case, and so it plugs that number into this do n, and this will do something a certain number of times, and guess what? That number of time comes from here. So if this is set to 6, it will do this 6 times, and what it does then is it'll start a counter, and yeah, that counter will be equal. Oh, it'll start ticking here, and then it compares this, and it says, hey, are you greater than this number? And if you are, then it'll break line of sight because you reached the maximum number. So then if it's false, then it will keep printing the time, which I can demonstrate this real quick. So if I got a target and I break line of sight, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, bam, line of sight broken. So yeah, that's how that works. And so then after that, if line of sight does get broken, it resets all these locking variables, comes into the blueprint interface, which is essentially just sends the signal to the enemy test over here to show or hide certain effects. You could put AI stuff in here, even, you name it. It's not the point. I'm not explaining all that. So anyways, when this is toggled, each time this is toggled, this will turn on, off like a flip-flop. And that's the whole point of re-triggering this over and over through the various things. So while it's toggled, the tick rate will pulse through it, and you could use a timer, you could use whatever, and it goes through into something that, this is going to do some math on the controller. I'm not going to explain it all. It's just basically math. Takes the camera's look locations, or look at rotations of the actor and the camera, and it compares stuff, and it interpolates between 2 points, and essentially we want it to lock. We want the yaw to be modified so that it's always looking at the target, and that's why when you are targeted on something, the camera, I can't move it left and right. I can move it up and down because I got modifiers in there, but I cannot move it left and right. It will only stay focused on the target. Now, I mean, when it's zoomed in, it's a little different. So then, it comes back and it returns, changes the controller, and then it sets a controller rotation to that new target. So yeah, that's it for now. I'll probably add in some other videos after this for when I modify this to have a 4th conditional in it. But for now, that's gonna do it. And yeah, thanks for watching. And if you have any questions or comments, just leave them in the comments below, or maybe on the forum post. I'll probably have that linked in the description to the video. So thank you for watching.